Hey everybody, I'm Logan Alec. I'm a CPA. I own Choice Tax Relief. We help folks who owe significant back taxes to the IRS or their state. And today we're talking about a very scary notice. It's actually a form, rather, that you may find in your mailbox from the IRS if you owe the IRS back taxes. That form is IRS Form 8519. You can see 8519 up here in the upper left of the form. This is a taxpayer's copy of a notice of levy. Okay, so what is a notice of levy? A notice of levy is a document that the IRS sends, in this case, typically to a bank or some other financial institution, or somebody who pays you money in a non-employee context, right? Typically banks, right? That's the most common time we'll see this form in a bank levy. Let's go with that example. The IRS is sending a levy notice to your bank telling them, hey, you owe the IRS money. You, the individual, the customer of the bank, owe the IRS money. Therefore, bank, we are instructing you to freeze their funds in the account for 21 days, okay? The money that was in the account when the levy was served. And at the end of the 21 days, if bank, we have not told you that we've released the levy, you need to send that money to us, okay? Okay, and that's usually Form 668A, the notice of levy that goes to the bank. And then 7 days after the IRS sends that levy notice to the bank, it sends you, the taxpayer, Form 8519, which is your copy of the levy notice that the IRS sent to your bank. So in this video, I'm going to go over this form section by section, kind of paragraph by paragraph down here when there's all this kind of language down here. Of course, I'm going to tell you what to do if you receive this concerning notice. Well, actually, it's a form from the IRS. And of course, I'm going to be rolling with the bank example here in this redacted levy notice that our client received. The levy notice was sent to his bank, or one of the banks that he had an account with, TD Bank. But like I said, the IRS can levy other assets as well, not just assets held in a bank. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So first, let's go through the form kind of section by section, and then I'm going to tell you what you should do if you receive this Form 8519 from the IRS. So at the top is the date of the notice. Up here is a telephone number of the IRS office that this person here, I redacted the revenue officer's name here, but where this IRS employee works, who is the individual who signed the levy notice at the bottom. I mean, this is typically a revenue officer. Typically, that's the individual that would be signing these, although other employees at the IRS do have authority to sign these levy notices. What we're seeing right now is, the vast majority of bank levies are being issued by revenue officers as opposed to ACS, okay? But that could change in the future. Knowing this individual's name and the phone number for his or her office is very important, because you have a 21-day freeze period in which you can contest the levy on certain grounds, or potentially negotiate something with the IRS so they'll release the levy. I'll talk more about that later. But it's very important for you to write this phone number down, as well as the name of the individual here, who was the actual individual at the IRS who issued the levy. Right, so as I've already explained, here's the phone number for the IRS office where the individual who's named in this box works. They're the person that you want to talk to about your tax situation and about the levy. Your name and address are here in this box. I've obviously redacted it for a client's privacy, and your social security number is down here. In this to box, this tells you the bank or other entity that the IRS issued a levy notice to, instructing them to surrender your funds to them. Okay, so this is kind of the top of this 8519 here. It's kind of interesting the way it's formatted. Not a lot of kind of these forms and notices and collections things from the IRS are formatted like this, but for whatever reason, the 8519 is. Below that kind of quadrant of boxes there's a space for special instructions that the IRS has for certain property levied. So for a typical bank levy, you're not going to really see anything here because it's pretty standard procedure. But for example, if it's something a little more unusual, the asset the IRS is seeking to levy, there may be special instructions here on for the bank or other entity on how to handle the levy situation. For example, I believe in the Internal Revenue Manual, there's specific language that IRS employees are instructed to put here in the case of an inherited IRA. For example, if the IRS wants to levy an inherited IRA, they have to put some special language in there. All right. So then we have kind of another box here. This is basically your billing summary here. This is probably pretty basic, but obviously in this column here, kind of tax, this describes the tax form on which you prepare the tax return, giving rise to the amount that you owe. This could also be the kind of tax return that the IRS had a substitute for return for, an SFR. If you personally didn't file a return and the IRS filed one for you, more information about the IRS SFR program in the video that I've linked to at the top of the screen. Tax period ended. Obviously, if this is for like a 1040 income tax return, you're going to look at the first 4 digits here. That's the year. And the 12 here just indicates that the year ended in December. Right. And if you're an individual taxpayer, you're pretty much always on a calendar year basis. But for example, if you're a corporation who elected to use a different year end, like maybe June 30th or something like that, you would see, say, 11/20 here, and period ended, 2011/06, right, for June. Okay. Unpaid balance of assessment. So this is your assessed balance for each of these periods here. Statutory additions are penalties and interest that have accrued on your account in the IRS's computers, but it hasn't actually been assessed against you in the government's official books, but they're still going to sum that up for you here in the total column. So this is, this amount here is the total amount assessed and accrued balances that you owe, for 1040 for this period. And then here at the bottom, they sum it all up for you here, total amount due. In the case of our taxpayer, he owed about $313,000. And when it's talking about this date here, we figured the interest and late payment penalty, to, in this case, November 29, 2023. That's talking about these statutory additions, right? Because obviously, interest at the IRS, it compounds daily. The failure to pay penalty is 0.5% a month in general. For each month that you have an unpaid tax, although it maxes out at 25%. So because these are some older years here, it seems that the failure to pay penalty would have maxed out. So it seems that these statutory additions are probably just some interest is what I would imagine there. Okay, now there's this language down here, and some of these paragraphs are very important. So I'm going to go over these paragraph by paragraph, and basically read it and then tell you what it means. Okay, so pay close attention because some of these paragraphs some of them are obvious, but some of them are quite important. Okay, this paragraph. Although we have told you to pay the amount you owe, it is still not paid. This is your copy of a notice of levy we have sent to collect this unpaid amount. We will send other levies if we don't get enough with this one. Okay. Now, the first couple sentences there, I've already explained what a levy notice is, and this is your copy. But that last sentence, I want to kind of unpack it. It says, we will send other levies if we don't get enough with this one. So one thing to know about a bank levy is it's not continuous. Okay, so when the IRS garnishes or levies your wages, that wage levy isn't just for one pay period. It sticks on there until the tax is paid or you've negotiated a deal with the IRS to get that wage levy removed. That is not how bank levies work. Okay, the bank levy, this is a one-time bank levy. All the IRS could get in this levy is the amount that was in your account when the levy was served to the bank. Okay, it doesn't self-attach to future funds. Now, in this case, this revenue officer, Mr. Whoever he was, could have issued other levies to the same bank if he didn't get enough with this levy. right? As well as other banks and other entities as well. Okay, but that's kind of some unpacking there. Now, this bold section here, bold paragraph, very important. Listen closely. Banks, credit unions, savings and loans, and similar institutions described in Section 408N of the Internal Revenue Code must hold your money for 21 calendar days before sending it to us. Oh, so this is the 21-day freeze period. Okay, let's talk about this. Okay, so once you get this notice, and assuming you open your IRS mail timely, it doesn't mean that the money is gone for sure. It just means that their bank has frozen the money in your account, assuming you're still in this 21-day freeze period. All right. It is in this 21-day freeze period that you need to get on the phone with the IRS, probably at this phone number, right? Talk to your revenue officer to work out something, some kind of a deal in which the IRS will not zap all the money that was in your account after 21 days, at least up to the amount of the levy, or up to the amount that's was actually in the account, the lower of those two amounts. There's a few things, there's a few ways to go about it. I'm going to save those for the end of the video when I talk about what to do if you do receive this taxpayer's copy of notice of levy. But basically, this is a very important time frame in which you absolutely must act. Now, caveat to that, what if there was only like $20 in the account when the levy notice was served? You may not care, right? In that case, maybe it's not super, this 21-day freeze period isn't super essential to you, but eventually you're going to have to deal with this problem because it's not going away, right? But I did want to kind of put that out there. All right, next sentence. They must include the interest you earn during that time. Okay, so like I said, when you get the levy notice, all that's really up for grabs, or when the bank gets the levy notice, all that's up for grabs is the lower of the amount in your account when the levy notice was served, or the amount on the levy notice itself, right? The amount that the IRS is saying you owe. If you deposits made the next day, this levy notice wouldn't apply to those funds. Okay. However, the interest you earn on that money that was in your account when the levy notice was served, the interest on that amount only would be subject to the levy as well. All right, next sentence. Anyone else we send a levy to must turn over your money, property, credits, etc. that they have or are already obligated for when they would have paid you. Well, yeah, obviously that's what a levy is. It's someone who has your money or who is going to pay you your money. IRS says, stop, pay us instead, right? Because this person that you held money for, you're going to pay money for, owes us, right? This levy does not attach the funds in IRA, self-employed individual retirement plans, or any other retirement plans in your possession or control. Okay, so that's what I was kind of saying about this up here. The IRS is taking the position that an inherited IRA is not a retirement plan for these purposes, and that's why there's like special instructions for an inherited IRA, for example. That's just one example. All right, now this is important as well. If you decide to pay the amount you owe, please bring a guaranteed payment, cash, cashier's check, certified check, or money order to the nearest IRS office this form, so we can tell the person who received this levy not to send us your money. Okay, now you might be wondering, oh, and by the way, you should if you plan to do this, it tells you later to make an appointment with that office. You'll need to make an appointment at the IRS office in order to make a payment. Why they don't just include that up here in this paragraph, I don't know. If you wrote this, designed this form at the IRS, please let me know what the thought process was there, because you usually kind of want to get all the information about a certain topic when you're describing that topic and not later on down the line, the last sentence where someone might miss it. Anyway, IRS logic, right? So you might be asking, okay, Logan, in an age of kind of digital payments and electronic payments and all this, why is it telling me to go find the nearest IRS office, and it tells you how to do that down here, and make an appointment at the IRS office to make a payment, right? If I want to pay, if I know I owe this and I can't fight it, I just want to pay it, right? Well, it's kind of a timing thing, okay? So, if you do like an e-check or something, right, it might bounce, or something like that. But if you bring like a guaranteed payment, right, cash, cashier's check, certified check, money order, right, that's not going to bounce, right? And it's only when the amount is paid off in full with a guaranteed payment that the IRS will then basically immediately call out the levy notice, send notice to the bank, hey, we're taking back the levy notice. Don't give us this your customer's money, right? Probably also important for you, right, to understand who the contact person at your bank is who handles these levies. Get their name, phone number, fax number, right, so you can tell them as well, right, and give a copy of the levy release to them as well. Okay, just best practice. Make checks and money orders payable, because the whole thing is time is of the essence here, right? Time is of the essence. You have this 21-day freeze period, right? IRS wants to make sure if they're going to release the levy that it's guaranteed money. Okay, that's what this whole paragraph is about, right? Make checks and money orders payable to United States Treasury. If you mail your payment instead of bringing it to us, we may not have time to stop the person who received this levy from sending us your money, right? Like I was saying, time is of the essence. All right, next paragraph is if the IRS erroneously levies you. If you erroneously levied your bank account, we may reimburse you for the fees your bank charged you for handling the levy. You must file a claim with the IRS on Form 8546 within 1 year after the fees are charged. We have had clients where the IRS erroneously levied them. For example, one of our attorneys negotiated a collection hold with the IRS for a client, right, for a period of time when we can work the case, getting missing returns done, whatever. And the revenue officer just flagrantly disregarded that collection hold that we obtained. And and I think that maybe he didn't know about it, but we obtained the collection hold with ACS. A month later, the case was transferred to the revenue officer. That collection hold we got from ACS still applied, right? And he still went forward with the levy, but we were able to fight it successfully because it was an improper levy. It was an erroneous levy. If you have any questions or want to arrange payment before other levies are issued, please call or write to us. If you write to us, please include your telephone number, best time to call. And then, like I said, IRS tells you to visit irs.gov if you want to make payment in full of the amount on the levy notice. It says visit irs.gov to determine the closest IRS office that furnishes cash payment processing service. You'll need to make an appointment at the IRS office in order to make a payment. And then, of course, here at the bottom is a signature of the collections official at the IRS authorizing this levy. They're supposed to put their title there, but apparently this guy did not. All right, now I'm going to talk about what to do if you received this IRS Form 8519, this taxpayer's copy of notice of levy. First thing you should do is determine just how much is at stake with this particular bank levy, right? Like I said, it doesn't attach to your bank account continuously. Yes, the collections official, the IRS, can levy you the same bank again, right? But at least for this particular levy with this particular 8519, this particular notice that you've received, it's only a one-time thing. So you got to figure out, well, how much is actually at stake here? If you're not sure, call your bank. They should be able to tell you. If it's like I said, $20, okay, maybe you don't have to freak out about this particular levy, okay? But you might, hey, if you have other banks that the IRS might be levying, you got to worry about those. You have receivables you're looking to collect, and you have customers who are paying you, and the IRS sends them, a levy notice that could be bad for your business. So I'm not saying, hey, head in the sand, ignore the issue. You got to deal with it, right? Because it's coming to a head now. The IRS is taking forced collection action against you. You got to deal with this. But I am saying, hey, you might be able to ignore this particular levy notice if it's only a relatively small amount at stake. And of course, what is a relatively small amount to you might be different for somebody else, but call your bank, see how much is actually frozen here. Okay. And if it's like $20 and you're fine with it, well, yeah, at the end of that 21-day freeze period, your bank will remit that money to the IRS. Okay. Next thing I would say, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, is get the name, contact, and fax number of the individual at your bank who is in the levy department or who handles these things, these levies when they get a levy notice from the IRS, right? There should be a designated person there. If it's, a very small business, I would just talk to the owner, or a small bank, not a bank. If it's a small bank or credit union, they might not have a dedicated person. Well, if it is a very small business, right, the IRS sent a levy to, you probably just have to talk to the business owner. If it's a small bank, they might not have a levy department, right? But there should be somebody there that someone can direct you to who's your point person here. The reason you should get their contact information is because let's say you get the levy released, right? Either you pay it off or you work out some deal with the IRS. The IRS may lag in getting the levy release notice to the bank. Okay, you want to get a copy of that levy release. Ideally, give it to that person yourself. Okay, email, fax, in person, whatever, so that they know not to comply with the original levy notice, right? Because it's not necessarily an automatic thing, right? It's your bank would have to be the one to, remit the money. If they don't know they're not supposed to remit the money, even though you and the IRS do, your bank's still going to remit the money. Okay, so that's definitely something to be aware of. So I would say step two, obviously after you determine how much is at stake, step two is figure out who at your bank is your point person for this levy. And then you got to determine your plan of action here. Okay, if you want to fight the levy. Okay, now here I'm going to give you six ways to get an IRS levy release, and the first one is obvious. Already talked about it. Pay off your balance, right? In the manner that the IRS instructs you to in the Form 8519 yourself. That's pretty self-explanatory, right? If you already pay off the balance, IRS shouldn't collect from you twice as long as the bank knows not to give them the money twice. But that's one obvious way. Second way is to just kind of informally ask whoever the individual is who issued the levy if they can give you a little bit more time to pay what you owe. I would only suggest using this if you actually do have a plan to pay back what you owe in a relatively short period of time. But we have had cases where we've represented clients where they were just simply gathering the funds to pay off the IRS, and they just needed a little bit more time, and they did not want their bank account wiped out, in a bank levy. And we have been able to successfully talk to the RO. Hey, could you please back down from this bank levy? Look at these things our client is trying to do to get the funds together. But if you do this bank levy, it could wipe them out and delay that, right? So that's one thing you could try, is just kind of asking that for them to take it to withdraw the levy. If that's not gonna fly, then you could try to set up an installment agreement with the IRS. This far down the line, depending on how much you owe, they may or may not see things that way, because the IRS would, with wage levies, they love wage levies, but I mean, if let's say he has 60,000 in the account, they'd love to get 60 grand now instead of agreeing to some installment agreement, right, over time that you could default in the installment agreement, or you could go fall off the face of the earth, right? So they generally like having a bird in the hand, so to speak. But you can try. Now, this might not even be a full payment installment agreement. If you can prove to the IRS that, hey, I can look at my financials, I can only afford to pay you guys like $50 a month or something like that, or $100 a month or something like that. And you can prove to the IRS by their own math, by their own way of calculating things in the Internal Revenue Manual, that is all you can afford to pay. And the IRS has to release the levy, right? Similarly, if you can show the IRS hardship here, that this levy is causing you a hardship, and here's why, IRS, right? I need this money to pay this or that or the other, right? Then that is a valid argument against IRS levy action as well, right? They have to release it if you can prove to them that it's going to cause you hardship, making you unable to pay your basic and necessary living expenses for yourself and your family. Now, there's also, you could submit an offer in compromise if the levy was already there, right? The levy notice was already issued. The revenue officer may or may not release that particular levy just because you went for an offer in compromise. And again, 21 days is a very short time to put together a good offer and compromise package. But if you can, show the revenue agent, look, or revenue officer, look, this is the offer in compromise, right, that we're looking to submit to the offer unit. And they give a recommendation on it, by the way, to the offer and compromise unit. And, if it passes the revenue officer's sniff test, right, that you may be eligible for an offer in compromise, they may withdraw the levy, right? Because look, you are trying to get into a resolution with the IRS and work things out with the IRS, right? It just happens to be in this case, that's through the offer and compromise program, okay? And sometimes it's a combination of these things. that we do when we're attacking a levy for a client. Sometimes, hey, they gotta, um, tighten up the purse strings a little bit for a couple months and just get in some kind of installment agreement, right? Uh, when really the long-term game plan might be something like an offer and compromise, but you just need more time to prepare it and put together a good offer, right? So it could kind of be a combination of these things as well. And finally, one way to fight an IRS levy is to prove that the levy was issued erroneously or inconsistently with the IRS's stated procedures on levies. Okay, if you can show that, then you have a pretty good chance at getting the levy released, right? Because this is essentially due process, right? The government does not have the right, or rather, you have the right under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution to not be deprived of your property without due process of law. Okay, so the IRS has procedures, some of them statutory, some of them are just IRS procedural things. Nevertheless, if you can show the IRS did not follow proper procedures in issuing this levy notice, then you could contest it on those grounds. Okay? So that's the Form 8519. That's the strategy to take with bank levies with the IRS. And I do want to reiterate this, even though I've discussed it a couple times before in this video. Once you know the IRS is going to release the levy, get a copy of the levy release and you send it to the person at the bank, fax or email or whatever it to them, because you've already gotten their information, right? The person at the bank who's responsible for this, your point person there. And after you email it or fax it or get that to them, call them, get them on the phone to confirm that they received it and confirm that they're not going to move forward with sending the IRS your money. Okay, because that does happen even after a levy release, because it's the bank is the one who's controlling the funds, right? Anyway, folks, I hope this was educational for you. I didn't mean to go this long, 27 minutes, but this is a very important topic. It is a very scary form to receive. If you have received it, I would recommend you talk to a professional about it. If you owe the IRS or your state at least $10,000 or more, or you have multiple years of unfiled returns, you do qualify for a free consultation with us here at Choice Tax Relief. You can schedule that free consultation by calling 866-8000-TAX. That's 866-8000-829, or by going to our website, choicetaxrelief.com, filling out the form there, and we will reach out to you. I have some other information about IRS levies here on the left-hand side of the screen. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.